Happy Wednesday evening. Tonight we are going to do a live Q&A. So I've gotten some questions from various posts that people have messaged me over the past month, and we'll go over those questions tonight, as well as answer any questions from anyone who pops on. So the first question I got was, what is proper technique for squatting? And the answer is fairly simple. There's a couple key points you're going to look for in every single squat. So when one is squatting, you're going to start by going down. You're going to keep your spine neutral the entire time. Neutral means it doesn't round, it doesn't extend. It basically starts nice and straight from your shoulder to your hip, ends nice and straight. The next thing you're going to look for is that the hips move backward. So one thing I see that's very common for people who have knee pain is when they go down to squat, they move their knees first, and it looks like that versus like this. So it's subtle, and sometimes you can't see it unless you take a video and you really slow it down. But when you bring your knees forward first, like that, you're putting more stress on the knees instead of bringing your hips back first. It's a split-second difference, very small, but it can make a big difference when it comes to knee pain. We also want to make sure that the knees track over the toes when we do a squat. So when you're going down, knees straight out over the toes. You don't want the knees to come in on the way down or the way up, and you don't want them way out to the side. You want them straight over the toes. When you stand up at the top, you want a nice straight line through here, so your hips are going to be fully extended. The amount of toe out, or how your toes are positioned, varies. So it's going to depend on body mechanics, how long your upper leg is, ankle mobility, and that kind of thing. But most people are going to want to squat with some toe out because it's going to feel better, it's going to optimize their mobility, and it's going to be easier for the most part. The next question I got was to squat or to leg press. Why squat? Why leg press? What's the difference? And is one really better than the other or not? So it depends what you want to do. So for squatting, that requires a lot of core control to keep that barbell back or front if you're doing a front squat, and really just control that barbell. You have to take care of all of the motion. A leg press, it's contained. You simply push out. A lot of people can do more weight on a leg press versus a squat simply because it's easier. In regards to, there's less variables. You're also pushing on a diagonal as opposed to directly up and down. So that you should take that into account as well. The next question that I got was, how often should you squat? And the answer for that is, it depends. It depends what your goals are, it depends what you want to do. If you're training and you're highly competitive and you want to get a new 1RM for your back squat, then you're going to need to squat more frequently, at least 3 times a week. If you're just recreationally active, you want to stay in good shape, you want to be able to play with your kids, once or twice a week can be sufficient, depending on what other strength training and what other programming you do. So, flipping the sheet over, the next question I got was, what muscles are worked when you're squatting? And that changes depending on where in the squat you are. Certain muscles are worked more at certain parts than others. So, at the top of the squat, when you first start to go down, right here, your hamstrings and your quads are going to be doing most of the work, right through here. As you go down further, your hamstrings pretty much are used very little. The quads decrease in the amount that they're used compared to your glutes, so your butt muscles and your adductors, which are the muscles on the inside of your thighs. So the deeper you go, the more you use your butt, the more you use the muscles on the inside of your thighs. So if you want a really nice looking butt, squat really deep. That's the point there. The next question I got was, how many reps, how many sets should you do for optimal performance? And again, that depends. It depends what you want for performance. So if you're looking to target strength, you're going to want 6 or less reps per set, and you're going to be looking at more sets because you want a fair amount of volume, but you also want it at a high weight. You can't lift the weights that you're going to need to lift to gain strength for much more than 5, 6, 7 reps to actually be able to complete the lift. If you're looking more for muscle size, so hypertrophy, the growth of muscles, so the looking good part, you're going to want 8 to 12 reps and 3 sets about. And that's where the 3 sets of 10, like the standard kind of just general exercise prescription comes from, because it's right in the middle. 10's an easy number to count to. If you're looking more for endurance, So if you're an ultra runner or you do a lot of like long competitions like a Spartan race or something and you need more endurance, then you're going to want to do more than 12 reps. You're going to want to have high reps, lower weights, and again, the set number, 2, 3, it depends what your goals are. If you want to do like a 50-mile race, you should have a lot of endurance on board, and maybe more sets is good. And then I have 2 more questions that I got. One was, what is the best way to improve your squat? And the sarcastic response I have to that, which I'll give a good one, but I'm going to give a sarcastic one first. The sarcastic one is squat more. So the more you do something, the better you get at it. Pretty simple there. The more you do something, the more your mobility improves too, if you have mobility limitations associated with it. The not so sarcastic answer is to do different variations of it. So if you always do back squats, you can do a front squat, which is the barbell out in front and down. You can do split squats. You can do single leg squats. You can do pistol squats. You can do forward lunges, backward lunges, side lunges, box step ups, box slow step downs. Any of those work. You just want to make sure you load it up. The advantage of doing an exercise that's more single leg focused is you're going to work muscles that you wouldn't work by doing a double legged exercise. So different muscles turn on to different degrees when you use 2 legs versus 1 leg. And when you do one-legged exercises or exercises that predominantly work 1 leg, then you're building up strength in some of those muscles that you don't build up strength in when you're using an exercise or when you're doing an exercise that uses 2 legs. Also, another way to improve your squat is to work on mobility restrictions if you have them, which brings me to the last question, which is, what are the 2 most common mobility restrictions for the squat? And that answer is the ankles and the hips. And so the hips are involved mobility-wise because as that torso comes more and more down, your hips have to kind of open up and allow that femur, which is your thigh bone, to track. If your hips are really tight, that femur can't go where it needs to go and you end up moving your back more. The ankle mobility restriction comes into play because you can't get those knees as far forward, so you can't get as much bend in the hips, so your torso then goes more parallel. It makes more sense sometimes if I show it. So here, I'm going to show ankle mobility first. So this is what it looks like when I don't bend my ankles as much. I can't get quite as low. Now, if I bend my ankles more, I immediately drop down because I get that motion. To decrease my hip mobility, I'm going to toe in, which basically prevents this bone, the femur, from tracking the way it normally would. So here, I go here. My hip stops, and I really can't go any further unless I try to push my knees forward. If I toe out, I improve my hip mobility, and I can sink a little bit lower. So there you have it. Those are the 2 most common mobility limitations when it comes to squatting. If anyone has any questions, feel free to comment on the video. I'm more than happy to answer them. And have a good night.